There we go. Okay.
Now's it recording?
Yep, you're on.
So, hey everybody. Sorry I haven't done a video for, gosh, over a month now. There is a reason for that and a story behind that. But tonight I'm going to let my friend Shane turn the camera on yourself and say hi.
Hey,
There you go. I
everybody.
can see you. So he's got a list of questions he's gonna ask me tonight, and I'm gonna answer them. So I'm gonna let Shane take over and start this interview, and hopefully I'll answer any questions about me not being around, and I don't know, answer questions that you may be having about your own battle with bipolar disorder. So take it away.
Okay, Count. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. What can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up?
Um, I had a really good and a really shitty childhood at the same time. I had grandparents that absolutely adored me. I was the firstborn, grandchild, nephew, great grandchild. So I was treated very special. But I was always very temperamental. I used to throw horrible fits. I think I talked about that in one of my videos where I threw a coffee cup down. I was biting my fingers. That's why my knuckles are so big, because I still do that, like Maud, like B. Arthur used to.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Um, but my mom recently said that as a child, she was kind of afraid of me sometimes because she didn't know what to do. You know, I'd be happy and fun, and I was always like the ringleader. And then I would be like hitting myself in the head or acting out like violently towards myself, and then to go right back into, you know, normal little kid. Um, but when I was 6 years old, um, my step uncle molested me for the first time. That went on until I was 14. But after that time, I think that really ignited these uh, these mood swings. I think it opened up. I've heard a lot of other people talk about how their bipolar characteristics started coming out when they were after some traumatic happened to them,
Okay.
and that was something that really I think ignited my bipolar behaviors, my mood swings, my the kind of the violence towards myself, the depression, the want to die. Um, so I was kind of like that my whole life, basically, like I am now. I was like that even as a child. I thought about like death and suicide, and used to wonder why I think like this. You know, do other kids think this way, or am I the only one that thinks this way? Um, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that except my childhood was a roller coaster, just like it is in adulthood.
Okay. What can you tell us about your past suicide attempts? How old were you when? Uh,
The first time I think I was like 10. My parents don't know about any of this. I used to try to do things all the time. I think the first time I got drunk was 1979, the day before Easter. So it was a Saturday before Easter Sunday, 1979. I drank close to a bottle of a fifth of Myers Dark Rum. And I remember I liked the way it made me feel. And I kept passing out and I kept getting really sick. But I remember in my head, I kept thinking, man, I'm going to die. And then I'm not ever going to have to feel like, excuse me, that I'm not ever going to have to feel like this again. Um, I went throughout my like high school years. I used to do things like I would take overdose on pills, but I always did things that didn't come across as like he really meant to commit suicide. I don't think people really noticed it. I think because I was on the outside, I was so happy and silly and um, seemed to be having fun all the time that no one would believe that I was trying to kill myself when in fact, you know, most of my childhood, even after the abuse stopped, I was pretty dark and depressed. But I was always very manic, you know. even when I was depressed, I was still like in this state of mania where I was like bouncing off the walls and full of energy, and you know my I'm getting off the subject of the question. All right.
It's okay, but it all flows within the situation. So we're kind of just wondering about your past suicide attempts.
Oh yeah. Well, so I stopped taking the ADHD med a few months ago because I thought it was creating more agitation with me. So I tend to slip away from the subject sometimes. It's
Okay,
hard to keep keep me focused if I start to drift away
sure.
because it's really easy for me to get off on an exit and be on a totally different highway. Um, I took pills a lot. I tried to OD on drugs a lot. I tried to drink too much, thinking that it would kill me. I did a lot of dangerous things. Like I used to like to blindfold myself. I had this Trans Am that had T tops. I used to call it Night Rider, um, or Kit, and I would take the T tops off and I would fly down the highway like really late at night, like going like 120 miles an hour, and I'd blindfold myself and let go of the steering wheel and ride in the middle of the two lanes
Wow.
to see how long that would last. And I always chickened out, but I used to always hope that when I grabbed the wheel or something, it would turn and I would slam into the wall and die. Um, I used to do things like when I would go to the beach, I'd swim really far out, hoping that I would get out so deep that like a riptide would take me under or a shark would attack me. Just really crazy, bizarre things. It wasn't until I really started using like hardcore drugs, like when I started using meth when I was like 40, gosh, I think 42. It's only been like 5 years that I started, like 5 years ago, I started using. Because I came to treatment after like 2 years, but when I started using drugs like that, that's when I really got serious about it. I mean, I did a few times when I was with my partner Jonathan, when I had my farm. I was a pretty happy person, but I was also really miserable, and he also suffered from bipolar disorder, and we were both untreated. So you can imagine what that household was like. But I, yeah, I tried to take pills before. In fact, I think I took a bunch of pills one night, and he called an ambulance, and the police came and they took me to a psych ward and kept me there overnight. Um, but yeah, they've gotten worse over the past like couple of years. Like the ideation of having death happen to me has been more and more frequent. I don't know if it's like the drug addiction thing. They say that gets progressively worse. Sometimes your mental illness does. Maybe all the years of beating on my head and the drug abuse have left me with some kind of brain damage that's made my bipolar disorder worse. Um, I was definitely on for the past couple years one medication that was just really horrible for me that I got off of this summer when I was in treatment that I think could have really been pushing a lot of these suicidal thoughts through my head. But as of right now, today, I probably feel more balanced than I've ever felt in my entire life. And in fact, it's kind of boring, because I'm just so used to all the wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Even though, like last night, when you said, "Hey, I'll help you out with a place to stay," I was sitting there thinking, if no one's going to help me out tonight, I'm just going to go ahead and kill myself again. That was what I was going to do. Because that would have been a sign to me in my head, because the way my mind works, um, that means it's okay for me to do it because no one cared. But people do care, and they think that me sitting here in your house is proof of that. And And I think that people that feel like I do, because I know there are people that feel like I do that have bipolar disorder. There are people that feel like I do that don't have bipolar disorder, and they want to give up and they want to end their lives. But someone out there cares, and someone out there will help you. I don't think that, you know, because of the instant results as part of my, I don't know if it's part of my bipolar or part of my addiction thing. I want instant results, and when I put something on Facebook, by God, every motherfucking 800 friends that I have that I don't even know should call me up and say, hey, I've got a place for you to stay. I'm going to run an apartment for you. Everything's going to be fine. But it doesn't work out that way. And I think it's really easy for someone who's extremely emotional, who's been through what I've been through in the past month. And of course, we'll get to that.
Yes.
Um, feels that way. There's that whole, like, that desperation for wanting to be loved, wanting to feel safe, and when you don't feel that, at least when I don't feel that, my go-to is to just end my life so I don't feel that way. It's not that I want to die, I don't want to feel like I feel. That's why I commit suicide. That's why I've tried to commit suicide. And, yeah.
Well, it's a pretty straightforward answer, I would say.
Well, that's what I'm trying to give. Giving and receiving.
um, so what sort of things go through your mind that actually push you to that point? I know you just with the last question you kind of covered a little bit of that, but could you be a little more specific?
Like what goes through my mind when I want to kill myself?
Yes.
Um, there's no other way. There's no other answer. There's no other cure. There's no other fix except for that. I get to running through my head like my whole life has been like this. Look what I'm putting everyone else through. Look at what I keep putting myself through. If I just go ahead and end my life, then this is over with. It's over with for everybody else. It's over with for me. And you hear people say all the time that suicide is such a selfish thing, and that what about oh shit, what about your family? What about your friends? Um, but you know what? It's me. What about me? What about how I feel? And I don't think that there's anything wrong with being selfish when it comes to self care. I mean, and as messed up as that sounds, that me talking about wanting to kill myself is self care at that moment, at that point in time. That's the way I feel I can care for myself. I don't have I don't have anyone there to give me a better answer. I've got all these emotions going on in my head. Like I'm like all manicky and ramped up and hyper, and then there's that under part of it because I have mixed bipolar, so I'll have both of the manic and depressed at the same time. Um, depressing thoughts going through my head, like no one cares about me, and then I start milling over the past year and all the things, the breakup of Tyler, the loss of my job that I love. I was thriving a year and a half ago, and now I'm homeless and would be on the street right now if I wasn't staying here at your house. When I look back on that stuff, what I had and what I don't have now, I get caught up in that moment right there,
Okay.
and it's like an instant result. It's a cure. It's a way for me to stop hurting. And sometimes when I have these thoughts, I think I was talking about this with you earlier. Who has those thoughts?
Right.
Who thinks like that? Well, you know what? I think like that. Other people that have mental illness think like that.
Mm-hmm. Most
And
certainly.
I don't want to make my whole like Counts has bipolar channel about suicide, but I wanted to take people on my journey to find peace and balance in living with my bipolar disorder. And the suicide thing is what I happen to be going through right now.
Right.
But that's just the kind of stuff that goes through my head. It's just, I get so much going through my head that I can't think straight. And the quickest route to get everything just done and over with, kill yourself. And it hurts because I start feeling like, God, I have so much potential to be like such an amazing person and do amazing things. And I have a heart of gold, but then I hurt. And why do I hurt? Why does everybody else not hurt like I do? Which I know they do, but at that point in time, that's like what I'm thinking in my head. And I can't think straight, and I don't want to feel the way I do, and I just want to die. And I felt like that my whole entire life. I remember asking someone when I was 7 years old, why do I want to kill myself all the time?
Oh, it's a pretty young age to be thinking like that.
Yeah, I I was a weird kid. I've always kind of thought like an adult, even though I act like a boy now. Um, I've always thought like an adult, even when I was a kid. I remember when I was in, I think it was in 10th grade. One of my teachers said, "Why don't you act like a high school kid?" Because I couldn't. I don't know. I think maybe because I had to start dealing with adult situations at such a young age with being molested.
Hmm.
Being molested, that's an adult situation that a child shouldn't have to deal with. So I was having to deal with adult things as a child, so I didn't know how to act like a child. And now I do, and I love it. So that's how the thinking goes.
So, can we talk about the addiction versus the bipolar?
Yeah, I someone asked me like why did I relapse this past time? Or why do I ever relapse? I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that I really do think that I suffer from addiction, um, which the majority of people that have addiction usually have a dual diagnosis of mental illness as well. But when I relapse, it's not because I want to get higher because I want to use drugs. It's because I don't want to feel. And if things are going really bad in my life and I can't seem to get a handle on myself and how I feel, drugs shut me down. They're like the best bipolar at the time, the best bipolar medication I can think of. If I stick a needle in my arm full of meth or heroin or both, I shut down. I don't feel those things that make me want to kill myself, that make me want to cry, that I just go numb and have like really no feeling at all. And that's why I usually try to put myself in situations where people aren't really going to be expecting to have sex with me, that because I don't want to. I really just want to be by myself and feel nothing.
Okay.
I think it makes my bipolar worse because when I'm doing drugs, I don't take my meds. And when I don't take my meds, I get all out of whack. But I can't wait till we get to the part where you ask me about like the meds that I'm on now because this is the best it's ever been. Even though I still have bad thoughts, I feel balanced. As balanced as someone like myself can feel right now.
Okay. How has all of this affected your relationships? Whether it's family, love interest, friends?
Um, Everybody loves counts. Someone that I was in an intimate relationship with said to me, "No one ever falls out of love with counts. They just get tired." And I think that that's what's happened with my friends, sometimes with family members, with intimate relationships. I know my relationship with Tyler was the best relationship I've ever had, and he's someone that understands. He understands me, but it's still a lot for him too. Um, Anyone in a relationship, I think, with someone that's got a mental illness, especially bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, um, I think it's really challenging because of the mood swings, because um, of all the I have a very spontaneous personality, and I blow up and explode, and then 5 minutes later everything's fine. And that's a lot for people to deal with, even people that love you. Um, when you go through periods of like long-term depression or mania that lasts for days on end, and you're bouncing off the walls, that's a lot for someone to have to deal with. And it can be emotionally draining for people, and that's why almost a month ago when I tried to end my life, that was one of the reasons I did it, was because I hate what it does to my relationships with people, and I hate what it does to other people. I mean, I really hate what it does to me, but God, what it does to other people tears me up even more. Sorry, I'm just trying not to cry. But it's kind of hard to hear, no one falls out of love with counts, they just get tired. They just get tired. But see, I get tired too. I got tired on December 8th. I was just tired and tired and sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the way I was making people feel, and so it makes it hard to have relationships. If your shit ain't balanced out, and people fall in love with me like instantly, like whether it be with on a friendship basis, people in my family absolutely adore me. But do they come around a lot? Do I see them a lot? No. Do relationships last very long for me? No. This last relationship I had was with someone I wanted to spend my entire life with, and I may very well have ruined my chances of that because I wasn't taking care of myself and my addiction and my mental illness the way I should have been, which is not uncommon with people um, who suffer from bipolar disorder. I have a tendency to self-medicate and know which medications are right for me, and he could always tell when I wasn't on my medications and would ask me questions concerning, are you taking your medications? Did you take your meds today counts? Because just even one day off of them, and you can tell with me. So the answer is it makes them really hard to keep stable. I think people just don't know how to. People don't know what to do, and I don't blame them. Just love me. Just love the people you love, and try to understand them the best you can.
So moving on to the next question. Have you noticed similar patterns throughout your life when it comes to? Is there certain triggers for you that really put you on the edge towards wanting to commit suicide?
Yes, because here's what happens with me. I go in these waves. So I have a really rapid recycling. Like my mood swings can change throughout the day, but the major ones, I stay more manic than anything. But I've always got that depressed, morbid side, just like lying there underneath, that sometimes creeps out. But like, say for instance, this past when I first moved here from New Mexico to go to treatment in 2014, um, I something happened to me. Like I became comfortable with my sexuality. I had, I'm sorry. I met some amazing people, and I fell in love before I even got out of treatment with the person I spent 2 years with, and that kept me on this like high that I can't even explain. I still had points where I would like just skyrocket down, but it would only last for like a week or two. But I was still happy in there. Like I said, like the mixed bipolar thing is really complicated because it's like both things going on at the same time. So it's like I always describe it as like I can be laughing and having the best time, but bawling my eyes out because someone's like trying to murder me from within is what it feels like. Um, but then all of a sudden, because I'm feeling good, like maybe I don't want to take my meds, I'll do something like that, or even before I was medicated, um, things would just start to get difficult for me, and I didn't know how to deal with them, and I didn't want to deal with them because I didn't want to feel. So I'd start drinking, I'd start using drugs, um, and then everything blows to shit just like it is now. This is about the worst that I've ever been. I don't think I've ever fallen down this far as I have this time. I don't think I've ever lost as much as I've lost this time. But the patterns are pretty consistent and pretty much the same, like all the time. And I'm really quite sick and tired of having them. So I hope that answers that question pretty well. It's basically what I described to you is how that cycle goes like every like 2.5 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great answer. Um, have you thought about a solution um, to your situation? What are you thinking of moving towards since you know what you're dealing with currently? How do you plan on progressing forward and moving through life?
So like based on the situation I'm in now,
Yes.
um, ooh, that's really putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
You're staying in my house, so I'm going to ask you this question. No, I'm just
No.
joking. Well, like I said today, I'm trying to get into some type of housing, either through the VA, through Hennepin County. There's this program. It's called ERT. I don't know what it stands for, but it's a mental health program. It's kind of like an outpatient thing where you live there, but you can still come and go. but you do like um, it's like a partial inpatient kind of thing with mental health. I think it's like a 3 month program. Trying to get into something like that. I'm trying to work with my psychiatrist who wants to get me in like this HUD-VASH apartments that are down by the Guthrie Theater that are for veterans. Um, I would really like to get a therapy dog. I think that would help when I start having my like agitation. I noticed when I've had pets in the past that tends to like ease those. And if I had a dog that was trained to notice when those times were coming on, because they have really good DBT skills, but I usually blow up so quickly I don't get a chance to use them because I get above that threshold where I can calm myself down enough to use those DBT skills. Um, but initially, I need to find some kind of housing, um, so I'm not homeless, so I can have some stability. I think that's really key for someone with mental illness to have stability, a place to live, someplace they can go to every day that's the same. When if I'm out like and I'm bouncing around from friend to friend, house to house, dragging my stuff everywhere, that to me that's a huge trigger for me to use. That's a huge trigger for me to want to commit suicide, to feel like I'm a piece of shit and self-loathing, and then next
Mm-hmm.
thing you know I'm um, worse than I am today. But from that moving forward, once I get that stability, I want to start working again. I haven't worked in over a year. Um, I want to just have my life back again. I want to take care of myself. I want to learn to be more gentle with myself. I want to learn to do this. Um, that book is really good. I want to learn to do the things that I already know how to do, but do them over again and do them the right way and do them consistently. Tyler said to me last night, I always give up too quick. And I got mad about that, but the fact of the matter is I do, because I want things to happen so quickly and instantly that I have a tendency to, well, it's not working, fuck it. I'm done. Everything sucks. My life sucks. Life just sucks in general for everybody sometimes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not some special case. I act like I am. And, I remember when I was a kid and lived with my grandparents, like when I was in high school, my grandmother would say things to me about, well, when your grandfather and I first got this house, we didn't even have indoor plumbing. We have a pool in the backyard.
Oh
You
wow.
know? And, or she would say things like, well, you know what, when I was local, and I would be like, I don't care about that right now. I'm talking about me. Well, I need to quit just thinking about me, because if I look at the big picture, people just struggle. People with bipolar disorder struggle a lot more than the average person, I would say. But they live and they get through things, and I want to be able to just cope with life like I used to. Like when I was with Tyler, when I was working at the French Meadow managing, I loved that job. I loved my relationship, and I still had shitty things happen, but I worked through them. And somewhere along the way, I just kind of. This mental illness is hard, man. Like, It just, like, creeps up on you sometimes, up out of nowhere, and. I don't know what to do with it, but I think that I'm on medications now that are keeping me a lot more even keeled and mellow. And I'm only on two, which is nice. And I think lithium is like a godsend. In fact, I even talked to one of the psychiatrists when I was in the hospital that said that, because I had read where Native Americans back in the day used to send people that were really stressed out or having mental issues to lithium streams to bathe in them. And he said that that was interesting, and that there have been studies done where there's high lithium levels in water, people have less suicide rate.
That's interesting to know.
Yeah, so I'm on a pretty high dose of it, and I think that I'm going to ask my psychiatrist tomorrow to increase it to the highest dose, just because it is the best medication and it's the most natural because it's a sulfate um, for treating, um, for preventing suicide. You know, along with, I can't just take pills. I have to do all the other stuff, like still see my therapist, and I have to stay active. I have to be very active because when I'm idle, things go wrong. I get bored, and I let my mind start playing tricks on me and telling myself lies. Like I suck, I should be dead. And it's easy for me to convince myself of that. Like I'm so yin and yang about how I feel. Like one side of me thinks that I'm like amazing and I can just do amazing things and be this great person that does something with their life, or I can be a worthless piece of shit that should just be dead because I can't do anything. When I really know that that's not true. But I still will convince myself of that. I think I might have drifted away again.
That's all right. Because it's all relevant. Um, what kind of support system are you putting in place for yourself uh, to help you maintain just everyday life?
I, I think for me it's really essential to see my psychiatrist regularly, take my medications. I need to start working out again and exercising. I need to start working. Um, I need to have daily routines. That's huge for me. Seeing my therapist, I don't know if I said that. Going to AA meetings. I have a lot of support through AA when I go. It's been really hard for me to reconnect with people again this time. I think because of the depression being so bad. Um, I think I'm through mourning the loss of my relationship because there's still a good relationship there, regardless of what it is. Um, that's been a huge thing for me. I don't think my heart's ever been broken like that before, but it was broken because of my actions, not because someone was being malicious to me. um, and I think that I really want to join some kind of local bipolar support group with other people, and just simply having like daily routines and having a life and friends and keeping connections with people is probably the biggest thing for me, because I think that's why, like, before all this happened, before I disconnected from everyone and made my relationship and my job my whole entire life, that's what kept me happy. That's how I was able to handle things when things happened that weren't so great, because I had those connections and yeah, other people. You got to have other people.
Now, would you say you can relate better to people that are in a similar mindset as yourself, or are you able to pretty much connect with anybody?
I can pretty much connect with anyone. That's something about me. I can walk into a room full of strangers and walk out of there knowing every single person in the room. I think even with people that aren't in my same situation, I think they like how forward and open and honest I am about things. And I think people appreciate my vulnerability, um, which some people look at it as weakness. I think that being able to be vulnerable in front of people is one of the biggest strengths a person can have, because it's opening yourself up to the possibilities of what could be. And I like that part about myself.
Have you ever noticed your mental illness preventing you from building relationships with new people?
Oh my god, yeah. See, I'm really good at like that initial connection with people and maybe hanging out a few times. That's why I have all these Facebook friends that I don't know. Cause,
Okay.
cause I'll meet people and I hang out with them, and I think like this with you and I think 2 months ago, I don't think I'd have been able to sit and do this.
Okay.
I've accepted the fact that where I'm at does not make who I am,
Right.
you know? Um, and I used to want to hide like my mental illness and my addiction and stuff from everybody. So I used to say this like when I lived in St. Louis because I also sold real estate there, so a lot of people knew who I was. Everybody knows counts, but no one knows counts. So that's how that's how I'm gonna answer that question.
Okay. Perfect. Um, what advice could you give somebody that is dealing with bipolar depression?
Um,
What's a good starting point for them?
find a good therapist and talk to people. And I'll tell you why. I got myself in a place where I couldn't talk to people when I was living in my sober house. And for those of you who've watched my past videos, you know what it was like in my sober house. That they kind of made I had to have a contract with them that I couldn't I couldn't talk about my mental illness or wanting to commit suicide or feeling depressed or wishing that I was dead. I wasn't allowed to do that. I was put on a behavioral contract. Um, there were also people that were in my group that were associated with my house manager or lived in my house. So I was really uncomfortable to do it at when I was doing outpatient for my drug and alcohol addiction at New Way. Um, so I wasn't able to talk to anyone. And I guess this is the part where I'm just going to kind of throw in this story about what happened and why I've been gone for a month. On December 8th, I was at an AA meeting, and I had brought along with me, because I had been sitting upstairs all night long just agonizing over how bad I wanted to die, how miserable I was, and how I was feeling. I had been, um, I did the video where I had been up for days and days and days. It kind of continued even after I got out of the hospital. I don't think that the meds were still where they should have been. Um, I was feeling very isolated, and I had no one to talk to. I only see my therapist once a week, and I couldn't talk about any of my mental illness in my group. Um, so I used to take propanolol, which is a blood pressure medication, for anxiety, which I wasn't taking it because I don't think that I really had anxiety. I took about 2 months worth with me to this meeting, and I went into the bathroom and I swallowed about 160 pills. I saw someone who watches my channel here and had seen some of my videos stop me on the street and ask me who I was, and they thanked me for what a great job I had done. And I had already started feeling really dizzy and like the pills were starting to affect me. And might I add, I also have pretty low blood pressure, so my blood pressure was dropping like increasingly fast. Um, I went into a smoke shop that some guys that I go was going to outpatient treatment with work at, and told them that because after these people came out and thanked me for the videos, I thought, oh my God, what have I done? The last thing I remember was getting into the back of the ambulance, and I started to fall backwards, and both paramedics reached their hands out, and I grabbed their hands, and I fell onto the stretcher like I was falling in the ocean, and this huge wave came over me, and then and I died 3 times. Keeping me alive took them about 2.5 hours the first time. Um, when I go to the hospital now, people like reach out and touch me, like, "Oh my God, you're alive," and "Oh my God, I am alive." I think the only reason I'm alive is because of God. And I wish I had reached out and told someone. I didn't want to go back to the psych ward though. I didn't want to upset anybody else. You know, people were just getting really sick of Counts wants to commit suicide. Oh my God, you're at this again. Why are you always doing this? It's not fun for us either. Um, this isn't a walk in the park, you know, when you're feeling like this. But if I can pass along any advice, man, talk to someone. I don't care who it is, and if you can't find someone to talk to, go to the hospital and tell them that you feel like you want to kill yourself, or you're gonna end up dead. Um, I realize now, like, even though last night I was thinking about wanting to kill myself again, it just makes the drive to do it, I think, more intense the more times you try to commit suicide. This was probably about my 20th time since I was about 10. Um, but this was a really serious one. I mean, I'm still like, I gained a bunch of weight. They had to pump like 50 pounds worth of fluid into my body to keep my heart going. Um, I have a blood clot because they had to drill a hole in my leg to get to bone marrow to start pumping fluids into me because my veins had collapsed. Um, you don't want to do this to your friends and family. When I finally came to, and I realized that Tyler had been there for a couple days, and that my friend Les had been there reading poetry and Bible verses and praying for me, and that my mother, that I've been had a weird relationship with for many, many years, was on her way to come see me. And Tyler, my mom, and Greg walked in, all three at the same time. And I was just like, to see their faces like that, to see how people really do care about you and love you is such a beautiful thing that that part of it makes you really not want to put other people through that. And I don't want to put myself through that anymore. Um, you know, like I said earlier, everybody has struggles and life is tough for everybody sometimes. And you just have to work through the tough stuff. And sometimes if you have other hurdles like bipolar disorder, you just have to try harder than other people, and you have to take your medication, and you have to talk to people, and you have to be honest with yourself and other people. And you know what? If you spend 6 months out of the year in a psych ward because you want to kill yourself, it's better than being dead. Because I really don't want to die anymore. And sing. That was kind of hard. I thought I was going to start crying like really bad.
It's not.
It's